Okay. It was a countdown. I was expecting the opening credits, which are pretty exciting, but we'll just move right along. We'll just suffice to say that next week, perhaps, we'll even work you into the opening credits that you'll have to see some other time. But once again, everybody out there in computer land, welcome once again to Super Tuesdays with Vermin Supreme. I'm Vermin Supreme, and this is indeed the show where I investigate, where I explore, where I interview representatives from various political parties across the spectrum to see which one might be a nice fit for me. And tonight we are honored and privileged to have with us an amazing individual, a major mover and shaker in the conceptual realm of transhumanism. And if you don't know what transhumanism is, you are gonna know by the time this show is over. I believe so. And so Mr. Zoltan Istvan is here with us tonight, the founder and practitioner of the Transhumanist Party, which may or may not be a real party. It may be a pretend party, but nonetheless, it doesn't really matter in the scheme of events in this context of this show. Of course, it matters. So, Zoltan, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I am just doing very wonderful. We are back on the road. We set out to go to the Iowa State Fair, and we had incredible automotive difficulties, and we ended up broken down in Sandusky, Ohio for a week, and up in the thumb of Michigan for another bunch of days. But we are back on the road, and I am just very thankful that I got enough Wi-Fi power out here in Dutton, Ohio, right next to the Cabela's. And we came here looking for some giant fish decals for our van. Sadly disappointed. They didn't have any, but we're still on the lookout. So, Zoltan, tell the audience, transhumanism, what is it? Where does it come from? And what does it have in store for us all? Because once again, I'll interject, of course, because I think we all saw heard about that Walt Disney movie, the cartoon one, Day of the Dead, and it's all about like the people in the other world, and they live on in people's memories, and they're not completely gone until the last person says their name. And of course, I think we're all familiar with the song Fame, the movie Fame. Fame, I want to live forever. But transhumanism is not talking about living forever metaphorically. It is more literal. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So, the main thing of transhumanism, like in the Latin, is just going beyond human. That's the Latin of it. But we're the people that want to, give you prosthetic parts. We're the people that want to make you live indefinitely through science. We're the people that when you're, fighting sadly in some far off war and you get your limb blown off, we give you the robotic arm and you can now play the piano again or, ride a pony or whatever else it is that you want to do. So transhumanism is augmenting the human body with radical technologies and the human mind with radical technologies in order to live longer, live better, prosper more, and hopefully enter the future as a stronger entity ready to take on reality.
Nice. And it sounds like we may be well on our way. Would you say? Where do we stand in the scheme of things?
The last time I think I saw you was in Vermont. We were at the Trump's convention outside protesting and doing all sorts of things, funny things. And we were talking about artificial intelligence, but then it was still this idea that was kind of vague and out there. And here we are, where AI is literally decimating the journalism world, decimating the financial world, changing the world because you now have a computer program that's not as smart as people yet, maybe be there in 5 years, 10 years, who knows, but it is so much stronger than we thought it would have been just even a few years ago. So that is transhumanism.
I, for one, welcome our new AI overlords, and I'd like to make that very clear.
Yes, and we should probably be nice to them because we may end up being sort of their pets or maybe end up being their, their friends, whatever it is. they're probably going to end up in 100 years quite smarter than us, and it makes sense to be nice to them. And that's only my opinion. Most transhumanists may not. Some transhumanists don't like AI. Some transhumanists love AI. But whatever has occurred in these last few years since we've seen each other, AI has definitely changed the world because it really is here now, and they're doing incredible things with it, for good or worse.
Indeed, I've seen a number of people have prompted in chats and to create speeches by Vermin Supreme, and it is pretty frightening. A lot of them are spot on, but some of them they can't differentiate between the in character and the out of character. So it has a little bit of difficulty separating the two for consistency. And of course, let me tell you this: a number of people have prompted the AI art bots to create pictures of Vermin Supreme, even using prompts such as with a boot on his head, wearing a boot on his head, and it seems to have failed that test. So there is it's a totally new test. It is essentially the Vermin Supreme boot test, and once AI can successfully create artwork and images with a boot on my head, I think that's when the game will be over.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's no question that probably within 1 year or 18 months, we will be able to create a virtual Vermin Supreme and have it talk with your same voice, because it'll be able to go through multiple interviews and podcasts and take on all your nuances, all your idioms, all the idiosyncrasies that you have, and basically run a virtual campaign for you. Now, we're very close to that already, but we're going to get there in 18 months, 24 months. And that's really going to be an interesting world for not only yourself, but for other people that run campaigns, other people that do performance art and things like that.
Yeah, so well, I mean, it's sort of like the whole deep fake issue is right there. I mean, once the machines can grab your likeness and image and voice and be prompted to do all sorts of potentially horrible and frightening things with it, I mean, back in the day, a simple meme, I see my picture with terrible words underneath it, and it's like having to do damage control on that. It's like, whoa, no, I didn't say that, but I saw it on a picture of you. So this is going to be a whole nother can of virtual worms, if you will.
Yeah, but I mean, it could be very useful, especially I think to like a third-party candidate where you really want to like make more inroads, and then you can send out 1,000 Vermin Supreme virtual, or Zoltan Istvans, who are running for whatever Transhumanist Party, whatnot, and actually make an impact on many more people. So yes, there's some downsides, and it's scary, and maybe there's a loss of privacy for sure, or a loss of control. But at the same time, it can be very effective in terms of maybe getting your agenda done, or getting your, spreading whatever ideas that you want to spread, especially freedom. I mean, if we could have a gazillion freedom bots spread the idea of freedom and overcome, our government now, or the totalitarian issues of Republicans and Democrats, whatever, that might be very beneficial. So, the glass is half full. It depends on how you look at it.
How would that work in terms of mass communications? Would we be spamming people's inboxes with these virtual vermin?
No, I definitely don't think we should be spamming people. But I think when people look on the internet, they would have a tendency to see a certain type of thing. And if people that are freedom lovers find a way in, they might say, well, my algorithm will bring a freedom-minded article or a freedom-minded idea to you first, rather than, let's say, the hurricane is whatever the next democratic type of crisis is, because it seems like the Democrats are in crisis mode every single day. Or,
they are the party of crisis.
Yeah, yes, or even in the Republicans, it can be, just whatever anti or pro-Trump thing it is. It doesn't really
also
matter.
The party of crisis.
Yes,
yeah.
It could be a message of freedom, and freedom that bombards you. And maybe that's not the type of freedom you want, but you have to ask yourself, which one would you rather have? And, I'm not saying this is good or bad. What I'm saying is that this is sort of here. This is happening. It's up to us for how we utilize it. And people that are running political campaigns might actually find it very favorable in making third-party candidacies stronger.
I suppose there is even the possibility of, as they do targeted mailing based on people's interests and things of that nature. You could have the the robot Zoltan or the robot Vermin, pitching a very specific, tailor-made spiel for somebody who's interested in this or interested in that. So yes, let's do it.
So, let me just say that, what's happening with third parties out there and independents is that they're never getting enough recognition. But what if there was a technological way to change that dynamic and to really say so that the two big, the one-headed monster, which is actually two parties, the Democrats and Republicans, actually could get overcome by technology in a way where your very first thing you saw in the morning was not done through these other big parties, but done through your own selective kind of.
How would something like that conceivably work in terms of tweaking the algorithms to throw lesser knowns up on top of it?
Well, I mean, it could work just because, first off, maybe somebody pays the mega giant companies and corporations that are out there to tweak it that way. Or maybe you find favor with some of the executives at these major companies that are sick of the Democrats or the Republicans and want to see a third party win. I mean, there's a lot of different methods you might make it. And maybe you're just like, this new guy, I forgot his name, who's singing this song out in Wyoming. I forgot it. But it's this new song that's come out, and all of a sudden it's taken its number one hit in the billboards.
Try that in a small town.
But the idea is that there's a lot of different ways to do it. I just think we have to find creative and innovative ways to get our message across. And if we're smarter than the bigger parties, we might actually make a difference.
Well, I like that idea, and I certainly hope that new democracy or democratization of the internet and AI robots merge and come out like that. That would be very swell. I would not complain, and of course we'd probably have to fold it into ranked choice voting and things of that nature. And also, let's see, the Transhumanist Party. Tell me about the Transhumanist Party and what it stands for, please.
Well, sure. I founded the Transhumanist Party in 2014 as kind of America's first science party. I was nominated its first presidential candidate in 2016, and we went on to run a very successful campaign in terms of media. I think we trafficked fifth of all the candidates that finished in 2016 after Jill Stein and Gary Johnston of the Libertarian Party in terms of media traffic. But of course, we had no money, so it was very difficult to get on ballots. That said, the party has continued. And it's had its own nominee in 2020 and 2024, and we have Tom Ross as its new nominee in 2024. And we continue as a party. There's maybe 10,000 registered people around that number, but there's probably 100,000 people that are like know about it, support it. So it's certainly not as strong in any ways the Libertarian Party, and we don't have a lot of official recognition, but we have had the United Nations, mention us in press. We've had a bunch of different, magazines. For example, Wired magazine published the Transhumanist Bill of Rights, which belongs to the Transhumanist Party, at least as a crowdsourced document. I wrote it in 2016 or 2015 as a kind of a Bill of Rights for cyborgs of the future. So we're growing, and I'm an advisor on it. I'm not an official, I'm not the chairman or anything like that. Gennady Stroliroff is now the chairman, but it's continuing to make an impact in the world of science. And I got to say, thankfully, it still has a little bit of a libertarian bias, though other people might argue with that. But we like to keep the Transhumanist Party free and open to new ideas. And that's really what science is all about.
Amen for that. And do you have anybody signed up for the 28 election?
No. Of course, I'll probably end up, I've told people this before, so it's open news, and I'll probably end up running again. I doubt I would run for the Transhumanist Party. I did run for the California, I was the gubernatorial endorsed candidate of the California Libertarian Party, and that went pretty well. I doubt I'll run as a Libertarian again. I've run as a Republican in 2020. I might run as a Democrat, just to have done all.
I don't want to disparage the Libertarian Party, of course, but fuck them. Thank you very much.
It's what it is. It's politics. But the truth of the matter is, I'm interested in science. I'm interested in getting you and me and all your listeners to live a lot longer and a lot better through science. So my main idea is, how can I message that? How can I get that across?
Talk to me about the portrait of Dorian Gray.
What is that?
The portrait of Dorian Gray. It should be some source material for you, sir. It is a story that I believe it's a novel, and it's a story about a gentleman who obtained immortality. He somehow wangled into immortality. I forget the details, and yet there was this a painting of Dorian Gray, and the painting aged. So he remained young, but this painting of him aged.
Oh, I'll have to check that out. I didn't even know that. Yeah,
yes, so the portrait of Dorian Gray. It's and so I think it's talking about perhaps the dark side of having that particular wish fulfilled. And of course, that's definitely something to think about, because obviously, the longer we live, I mean, currently, the longer we live, the more things go wrong with us.
Absolutely. I mean, aging is a terrible disease. Let me point out, though, just to your readers, this is the Transhumanist Wager. It's one of the best-selling libertarian novels of this decade. About 1,000 reviews on Amazon, and it's also about a person who wants to live indefinitely. Jethro Knight's the novel's been compared to Ayn Rand and Atlas Shrugged a lot of times. So if your readers are interested, the Transhumanist Wager is definitely a strong libertarian novel about the future and living indefinitely. But I actually hadn't heard about Dorian Gray, so I don't know if I should be ashamed or embarrassed, but I'm going to look it up right after this interview.
Most definitely check it up. And of course, you should definitely check out my book, My Pony, Blueprint for a New America. It's a story about the future, a future long after a Vermin Supreme presidency, after everybody has their ponies, after zombie power fuels the nation, after the secret dental police have set up checkpoints every couple hundred yards. It is a warning from the people of the future to you, the people of their past, that Vermin Supreme is a madman and must be stopped. But there are a number of transhumanist themes in this very book, and I think you would enjoy it. There is, of course, the human pony centaurs, surgically created human pony centaurs, and of course, the new capital of New America is in Detroit, and the upper floors of the towers there are filled with the cloned brains of my head here. And so actually, I get actually decapitated, and my head lives on, and all the brains create a supercomputer, if you will. So, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Vermin, that
might
is
be the bestseller, but it's okay.
But that is classic transhumanism with your brain. That is it. That's the kind of stuff we're after.
I think it is. But spoiler alert, my head gets a little tired of being a head in a jar, and somehow engineers a little nuclear accident and stuff. But that's I don't want to spoil it for you, but that's how it ends. But there's more. But of course there's more. Yes. So the $6 million man. You remember that?
Yeah, I know that for sure.
Was that inspirational? Was that somehow a powerful thing in your psyche that brought you to where you are? Maybe.
I wonder if it was. I got to be honest. I watched it when I was 6, 7, 8 years old, and I loved it. And I wonder if that's sort of what got me. Mostly, I think transhumanists, the reason they want to live indefinitely is they have some type of experience, a revelation or epiphany that shocks them into wanting to use science to achieve it. First off, they're generally secular. They generally don't believe in a higher power that will make them live forever. It doesn't mean that they don't believe in God. They just don't know if there's an afterlife. But, I was a National Geographic journalist. I was doing a story in Vietnam. I had a very close call with a landmine when I was covering the demilitarized zone. And it scared me so bad that I thought, my God, what am I doing here in this conflict area? Instead of dedicating my life to science, where I might be able to live longer. And lo and behold, I realized that there's an entire movement, transhumanism, that has been dedicated for 20, 30, 40 years to overcoming death. And now they're finally just getting close. We finally have a couple different drugs that are about to hit the market. synthetic organs have become a real thing. People, the idea of decapitating somebody and maybe even putting their head onto another person. Well, this is still far-fetched and people have talked about it. It could happen within the next few years or a decade. I mean, these things are coming true.
There are no shortage of mad scientists out there.
That's for sure. So I think the idea of indefinite lifespans is right around the corner now. If we can just make sure that AI doesn't somehow take over the world in some kind of Terminator scenario, give us a 10, 20, 30-year runway, and I wouldn't be surprised if humans make it so that people can live indefinitely, either through genetic editing or some type of nanotechnology where we're able to reverse aging.
Related but not related. Fahrenheit 451, the novel about how how all the books were destroyed, and yet the knowledge contained therein was passed on to individuals, and then they would in turn pass the book verbatim onto other individuals, creating sort of a human library. Similar but very different. But I just wanted to throw that out there because
I love Fahrenheit 451. That's a wonderful book.
It truly is. It's right up there with iPony, Blueprint for a New America, and of course what was yours called again? The Wandering.
The Transhumanist Wager.
The Transhumanist Wager, one of the finest books. If you have not read The Transhumanist Wager today, you should get on Amazon or whatever. So go to Barnes and Noble and buy that book.
Let me just tell you, though, this book has over 1,000 comparisons to Atlas Shrugged. So for that reason alone, I think a lot of your reader base should be interested in it because
I think this book has several. It says it's very much like the Transhumanist Wager.
There we go. Look at us.
So there's something going on there. So we should do a book signing sometime.
There we go. I know it.
We could get together and do a book signing, barnstorming tour across America when we're.
Well, now that I know the end of your book, I'm thinking there's a lot of transhumanism in it. Why not?
Neil Rawson just threw out a comment. He pointed out, or his belief, that only the rich, only the well-to-do will be able to afford this technology, this life-prolonging, endless life stuff. What do you have to say to that, Mr. Transhumanist fellow?
So no. First off, I this is probably the number one issue that comes up when you talk about transhumanism, that only the rich will benefit, and I disagree tremendously. First off, I disagree for reasons that I'm not exactly happy with. I think the government will get involved and make sure that, like housing and food and things like that, everyone has access to these technologies. But also like cell phones in Africa, people may not have access to fresh water, but they have access to cell phones. So I think people will have access to any type of technology that comes out within a few years. It's true, the rich might have access for the first few years, as typically is the case, but eventually most people will have access to the transhumanist technologies that come out.
Well, what about cryogenics? That didn't go too far.
No, I mean, I got to be honest. Cryogenics never really caught on. I mean, I'm signed up for it, and I mean, not literally signed up, but if I knew I was going to die in the next 50 minutes, I would stick myself in a refrigerator and ask my wife to take me to a cryonics institute or somewhere in Alcor and be frozen. But cryonics never really took off. I think that what will take off is
I think it was the thawing out portion that seems to have...
Well, you don't know if you're going to come back as yourself or as maybe a person who has all sorts of mental issues because the thawing out process didn't work. I mean, it works in movies, Hollywood movies,
Woody Allen, Sleeper.
Yeah, or Austin Powers is a classic one. But yeah, Woody Allen Sleepers. I'm actually watching Woody Allen Sleepers tonight. I'm on a Woody Allen trip right now. I watched the movie Manhattan last night.
A human scumbag, but a great filmmaker, and bringing forth, trying to separate the art from the artist. One of those deals. But yes, what are you going to do? How do you separate the foibles or the nastiness of a human and their artwork?
Well, that's a very tough question. Hopefully, there isn't too much of a difference. Like one's artwork actually reflects their inner self, and that's why it can be really nice. But in someone like Stephen King, for example, there seems to be horror, and then it seems to be someone who wants to be genuinely nice, or at least pretends to be. I don't know, but I think how do you separate is almost impossible. Only the artist knows that, which is kind of the realm of the artisan, the domain of the artisan, and actually his right or her right.
Cool. Now, let's say if you could have a robot body, would you go for it?
Yes, yes, yes. Look, man, you and I are dying, and we're going to be on the campaign trail another 15, 20 years trying to make our difference, and hopefully we will. Maybe one of us will win one day, but we're getting older. I can see it in you. You can probably see it in me because we've met a couple times on the campaign trail through the various years. I mean, it's 8 years since I think 7 years since we've met actually in person, a couple times, different places, and we're getting older. Our body is sadly falling apart.
Hell yeah!
Our teeth are going to come out. So if we can't change that, then one day we're not going to be here to do this, or we'll just be here virtually, run by AIs, some kind of program. But the point is, so how can we change that? And I hope we can change that. But we are getting older. We got to try to stop aging.
So, what do you do with all these humans that are living forever and cluttering up the place? Let's say, for example, I mean, hopefully you don't want the current wave of old people in the nursing homes to die off, or are we going to come up with some sort of cocoon scenario where we make them all young again?
So the transhumanists would argue that there is classic nanotechnology where we can remake, and even the China's already doing this to some extent, remake deserts into beautiful jungles. We can have storm making systems where we can now change the kind of desert into something beautiful, an oasis. So all parts of the earth can be habited. And if that's the case, then we really can have literally 50 billion people. We're stuck at 8 right now. We can have much more. But that's not the future. I think the future is that we either upload ourselves into virtual environments where we can have true freedom, be anything we want to be.
Like Second Life or Facebook Meta?
Something like that, but hopefully it's not controlled by corporations. Hopefully it's something that's kind of like open source, that you create what you want to make and what you want to do. Or the second alternative, of course, is that we go off planet, like Elon Musk is proposing. And I'm all for the off planet stuff. And that's again another big point of transhumanism is space travel. Let's get off this dirt clod and get out to the rest of the universe. The rest of the universe could take, hundreds of millions of years to explore. So I like the Star Trek age.
Sounds extremely expensive.
Very expensive, but hopefully, libertarians will find a way to, make it work from a capitalistic point of view, even if they just want to do it.
Okay, so what are we going to do with the pores again? Just leave them on Earth?
Listen, I mean, I think capitalism says that everyone can kind of do what they want to do. And again, I'm not going to defend 100%, especially in the new modern age where it's not really capitalism. It's kind of crony capitalism. The government, 1/6 of everybody's employed by the government. It's no longer a real free society where you can make the American dream work. But I do think that a great majority of people will be able to get off planet or upload themselves in the future and live a much better life than they're living now. And I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, but I do think that science and technology have a way of improving existence. You and I are much better off than we would have been 300 or 400 years ago, where we would have died from a cavity and only lived to maybe 38 or 39. So in that sense, we're better off. And even though it's not perfect, I mean, by no means is it perfect, even close. It's definitely an improvement over where we were, and it's going to be improvement where we're going.
Now, the negative impact of the Industrial Revolution is reverberating across the planet as climate change and the fossil fuel comes home to bite us in the ass, as it were. How does that fit into the transhumanist frame when you're trying to live forever, but the planet might collapse around your head?
Well, I think, earlier the number one question was, how do we stop the rich from gaining all the benefits? And I tried to address that. But the number two question I get about transhumanism and living indefinitely, of course, is how do we get so many people to live without completely damaging the planet? And I do believe that we are damaging the planet. There's really no question that humans are causing chaos through numerous environments, ecosystems, and things like that are changing. I'm not a huge, giant believer in climate change, saying that we're causing it all, but there's no question to me that it is now occurring, and you're seeing more of it caused by probably fossil fuels, ozone layer depletion, things like that. And how can we stop that? Well, a lot of people say, well, let's just lessen our carbon footprint. But I think actually the way forward is through increasing a technological fix. Yes, we're destroying the planet right now, but hopefully in 10, 20, or 30 years, maybe with the help of AI, we will come up with an idea where different types of nanotechnologies where we can actually grow things, like, for example, it takes right now 15, 20 years to grow a rainforest tree, a jungle up. But if we can do that in 1 year, then it makes a lot more sense with how fast we're clear cutting. So if we could start using technological fixes to start regrowing forests, to fix our ozones, atmosphere, things like that, to make it so that we don't need to necessarily even recycle, but we're able to take any type of matter and make it into things we want, whether it's garbage or nuclear waste, then all of a sudden we might have a much more pristine planet than we would have had had we not had these technological fixes. So the transhumanist viewpoint is that we must press forward, even if we're destroying the planet a little bit now or quite a bit now, and hope that we find a technological fix that can one day restore the planet to even more beauty than it maybe had. But I just want to point out one thing that is sort of new in transhumanism. Look, the natural order of things involves predation, this idea that the food chain, the wolf eats the deer and the deer eats the grass and the humans kind of consume everything. This is not a very nice system. If we could evolve out of a system where we have to eat each other, we have to consume each other, we have to plunder each other, that would be a much better system. If I was God, I would never create a system where the wolf eats the deer to survive, because the poor deer has feelings too, just like the wolf has feelings when he's starving. So you want to create a system of transhumanist future, we call this post-Earthism, that would not necessarily involve predation, might involve much more ideas where things can live in harmony.
It would almost require finding some other way to control the population of deer. For example, I was just up in Michigan, and the people aren't hunting anymore. Young people don't want to hunt, and the deers are getting quite out of control, quite out of hand, and there's a huge deer overpopulation problem. What do you have to say to that, Mr. Transhumanist fellow?
Yeah, I mean, that's very difficult. I think the transhumanist argument would be that we should probably try to relocate them to places that don't have deer or much deer at all. But
the Atlantic Ocean, perhaps.
No. Maybe deserts where we might be able to make it like China's doing right now, the sand machine, where they're able to take sand, mix in these different kind of chemical components, and all of a sudden you have an irrigated desert, or you have vegetation coming out of the desert, so you maybe can move it there. But in the end, I mean, I hate to say it, being realistic, some animals in the world of predation are just simply going to have to be slaughtered. And I mean, I'm not a vegan.
Well, it seems like the extinction of the species is going on at an incredible rate currently. In fact, this is what the 8th great extinction or the 7th great die-off, and it seems as it's a terrible time to be alive to see so many species and biodiversity disappearing right before our very eyes. With our consent and pitching in to that. I'm well aware of the problems of carbon, but yet I'm driving my vehicle every day.
It's almost impossible to stop. What I'm hoping is we come up with a technological fix that can repair all the carbon, all the damage that we've done from, destroying the planet. And really, because we're too far gone, let's be honest, Vermin. I mean, like with China and India emerging as developed nations right now, they're all going to become like America in 20, 30 years. They're all going to want to drive big giant guzzlers and cars and this and that. We're entering a point when global warming will probably become significantly worse if it is indeed human-made, and it probably is indeed human-made.
And I so imagine you would support geoengineering?
Yes. So geoengineering is entirely, so I don't know if I gave you this background, but I'm currently a graduate student in the philosophy department at the University of Oxford. And geoengineering is a major thing that the University of Oxford is pushing right now. And I think this is kind of the transhumanist technological fix where you could fix things through technology, through innovative ways that we haven't even thought about. I know the crazy one that everyone talks about is Bill Gates putting dust in the atmosphere so that we don't have as much sunlight. Even just changing it by 0.5% would cool down the planet. It sounds crazy, but these are the ideas that we should be thinking about. I'm not saying we should do it. I'm saying it's good for us to say what kind of radical things can we do to reverse what humans have done.
It almost seems to me as if the wildfires that are occurring and throwing up all that particulate matter is almost doing that job and almost regulating itself in some strange, horrible way.
Yeah, so the big explosion in Tonga, this is the conspiracy theory. Now, I don't know if it's true or not. The big explosion in Tonga last year sent up a huge amount of volcanic ash. And a lot of people said that's one of the reasons for some of the strange weather we're having this year and might be for another year or two. And historically speaking, giant eruptions have changed the atmosphere because they send up so much ash that doesn't allow the sun through. But, either way,
I'm reminded of the Little Ice Age. It was very cold.
Yeah. So, but these are ways that humans, if we could replicate these things and have more control, might be able to stop some of the climate change or global warming, or at least be able to better manage it so that it doesn't change our lives so much. Because clearly it does seem like weather has become a bit more erratic and more extreme. I'm not a climate freak where I'm like, oh, the world's changing. But there's no question that I've been surfing 40 years in the Pacific Ocean. I've been surfing 40 years in the Pacific Ocean. This last summer felt the warmest that I've ever felt it. I used to have to wear a wetsuit in the Santa Cruz area, full wetsuit when I surf in the summer. You actually don't have to wear a full wetsuit. You can wear a spring or even go bareback. That's a significant change in 40 years that I have noticed for the very first time.
You should go bareback. You should, you don't know what you could catch. Remember, kids, barebacking is for, wrap that, put a rubber on it. You know what I'm saying? All right, that's all I'm saying. Related, not related. I'm sorry. I would like to ask you if you could talk a little bit about any scientists or any scientific projects or breakthroughs that seem to be on the horizon that you're aware of that our viewers or myself might not have heard of or be aware of. Some of the projects that might be taking us towards this strange, brave new world, which you discussed.
Well, we've already talked about AI, so we won't talk any more about that. But clearly, AI is really that's what's going to change the world here in the next five years. But I think some of the biggest projects that are happening is we do probably have two different types of drugs that should be FDA approved here, hitting the market in 12 to 24 months regarding life extension. The very first types of pills or shots that you could legally take that might actually have the beginnings of reversing aging. And there are a number of other clinical trials going on where people are trying to get that passed, but there do seem to be a few of them that might actually hit soon, meaning that you can go to your doctor and say, how can I stop
I saw that
aging?
Documentary, Benjamin Button. So yes,
that said, I still think some of the other artificial hearts, a number one killer of everybody on planet Earth. About a fourth of us will die from heart failure or cardiovascular disease. They are people working on artificial hearts, stem cell injections to damaged hearts. So if you can get people like that to live longer, you can stop a number one reason that people end up dying. And I think, also just the idea that you are bound to a wheelchair, for example, you get in a terrible car accident. We now are coming up because stem cell injections and different types of therapies to get people out of wheelchairs, and especially using kind of different types of robotic suits and stuff. So the idea of either being deaf or blind or even being in a wheelchair is also going the way of the dinosaurs. Now, I'm not saying it's there yet.
Well, no, my healthcare plan is often included resurrecting the dead.
Yes. Well, quantum archaeology is what we call that, where you can actually 3D bioprint out people exactly as they were. But that's a crazy concept. You have to reverse engineer subatomic matter. But we could go back 5 minutes where we are and 3D print out ourselves and then have this conversation in another interview. And then there's two Vermins and two Zoltans.
Which one should we kill?
No, maybe we should make more, have a lot. It was the same idea where we were talking about AI. Why have only one Vermin doing interviews when you can have 20 Vermin doing interviews?
Well, once you start getting into that time travel, also you'll have that difficulty. And I have run into my younger self from the future in the past, and it was a pretty scary moment, quite frankly. And next time I will kill myself. I mean, kill him, who's me, but not me. But yeah, totally. I don't think there should be that many. But that's just me. But you feel different. You feel
No. I think we should. I think transhumanists would say we should make 1,000 of ourselves. And this is dangerous, though, because I mean, what would Trump do?
Would you want to party with a room full of yourselves?
Yes, because within seconds, everybody would be slightly different, and you might learn a lot from yourself just by having different variations of yourself. I think it'd be super fun. Now, I don't want to party with me every night, but
right.
Yeah, I mean, it would be fun to have
yourself in a room full of views. You think it would be pretty funny. You don't think it would be maddening as each and every Zoltan attempted to convince you that they were the real Zoltan and that you were not? Wouldn't that just make you go?
I think it's like the cat in the hat be thing number one, thing number two, Zoltan number one, Zoltan number two, Zoltan number three. And within seconds, everybody becomes a little bit different. Within days, everybody comes, it's just like children, even if they're twins. So that's an interesting thing too, because you'd actually be like.
And then you could start committing crime because like the lineup would be like.
Yeah, no, of course, and one would go free. Yeah, no, of course, and that I think there'd be differences really quickly, but you might learn a lot from yourself by having and you might get a lot more done and be like, okay, I'm right now, for example, working on my Napa Valley winery. I'd be like, you do the hammering, you do the painting, and you cut the lawn, and we're done in one day.
Wow. Oh, I'm just looking for a picture here that I want to show you if I can find it.
I'm surprised you don't want more of yourself. 100 of Vermins.
Well, I'm telling you, in my book, iPony, Blueprint for a New America, this issue is totally addressed. And here you will see a picture of there is Zombie King Kong. There is my younger self, and there is my head in the jar. And that's a robo pony. It's attached to a robotic pony. But in my book, when my younger self comes to rescue my head is not too thrilled at all. My head, but he was rescued by my younger self. And it seems like it creates all sorts of paradoxes and stuff. Yeah.
Oh, no, it does. But I think you have to go with those paradoxes. You just have to run with it and be like, all right, this is the new world.
It's a new world. All right. Well, it's a new world order. It's a new world odor. And I can smell what's cooking. What in the world are we going to do? What are we going to do with this? What do you expect people to do with this? You're presenting this vision, this wild vision that people have a hard time to grok, I think, as a rule, or think it is in the realm of sci-fi and not real sci.
Well, first of all, I think at this point, given how far AI has come and science has come, it's no longer really just a vision. It's kind of an inevitable point of the future. Think of how fast the microprocessor is still evolving exponentially even today. As long as that continues, this technology is going to continue. So I see a world where we're either uploaded, in 30, 40 years, I'd be very surprised if we haven't had some kind of giant conflict with AI that does with AI that doesn't leave the human race completely, to some extent, modified or changed. We might have to merge ourselves with AI to survive. We might end up just being sort of the slaves or pets of AI. But either way, I think whatever happens, AI is going to change the planet, and maybe it'll make it beneficial, a better place with climate change and things like that, and improve the planet. But either way, we're about to have an intelligence come onto planet Earth that's superior to us, and it will probably do exactly what I said: modify itself so that there's millions of it, or millions of its times of power, so that it can control things.
Okay, and I have a real practical question here. How do we make money off this?
Well, I think, first off, if you haven't made your money now, it's going to be very difficult because, and I've been telling people this, young people especially, like the idea of going to college, the idea of, training now to be, for example, a cardiologist, even a doctor. I mean, when an AI can read the cardiology already better than the cardiologist, we're entering an age when it's going to be very challenging to make a living. For your viewers, I would say, look, learn the basics, learn how to use a hammer, learn how to paint, learn how to build a house, because at the very least, you can still do something for yourself in the coming age of machines. That's literally at our doorstep now. But I don't think many people are going to make money off AI except some of the very richest. That's sad.
Indeed. Oh, I was going to ask you something there, but I completely forgot what it was that I was going to ask you. Just one moment. Let's see if I can recall.
Well, let me finish my vision a little bit of what the future is. So if we can make it past this AI war, AI engagement, and we could somehow continue on as species, then I think we might enter something really beautiful where science really takes us to new things. For example, I have friends who are working on biohacking. They're trying to put eyeballs in the back of their head. They're trying to grow multiple limbs. We could become a totally different species. And this is where transhumanism really takes off, because don't think of yourself as a human body with 3 pounds of meat on your head. Think of yourself as somebody in a true freedom, libertarian way can become any kind of animal, any kind of species you want. And it's not just robotics. It can be something that's kind of more Star Wars-like.
I would like to take this opportunity to clarify this rumor that I have been creating some sort of secret Isle of Dr. Moreau situation where I am literally turning people into ponies on my secret island. And I just wanted to say, not totally true. It's only partially true. And of course, the pony bodies that we are grafting the human torsos onto are lab-grown headless ponies. Okay, so I just wanted to be very clear about that. Thank you. And what I wanted to pivot to previously was indeed people living longer, living as different species, things of that nature, in the future of work. How will that work? And I guess the two-part, of course. I'd like to say I know you endorse, or Transhumanist Party endorses UBI, which is a thing unto itself, which I think many people are enchanted by the idea, and some people just don't understand how it works economically. But let's say if it's not UBI, I can still paint houses, I guess.
Well, you're not going to be able to paint houses.
Economy.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to paint houses better than robots. There are already robots being made right now that can paint houses more efficiently. So what I meant is when you start using,
to kill those robots now.
Well, I mean, again, this is if the governments could have stopped AI, they would have. But nobody can stop AI, because if we don't develop it, China will, and China won't, Russia will, and Russia won't, Italy will. So we're in a race. But so the main thing, though, is when I said build houses and learn to paint, I mean it for yourself. Become self-sufficient, so that even if the world, you can't make any money, at least you can provide a house for your family, and you know how to grow crops and things like that. I'm kind of a deep prepper. So I think that's one of the most important things to learn, is how to take care of.
What will a city look like?
Probably empty, almost like Terminator. I think what's going to happen is we will absolutely need a universal basic income for the foreseeable future, starting probably in 3 or 4 years, because too many jobs are going to be lost, and people are going to riot and cause civil war because they won't have enough food to eat, because their jobs have all been lost to AI. So the way to offset that is through a UBI, maybe taxing the companies that are using. I'm not a big fan of taxes, but to somehow make the companies that have created the AI to pay for some of those offsets, those jobs, that kind of UBI for the people that lost jobs. But I think we're entering a world where if you haven't made your money, it's going to be very difficult. I, for example, have a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old daughter. I'm not planning on sending them to college. Why would they go to college anymore? They're going to, by the time my 9-year-old gets to college, there'll be no more jobs by the time she finishes 4 more years. Yeah, no, you might go for social contacts.
Right. Funny little story. When I went to art school, when I was a young person, in the late 70s, early 80s, and had to choose, what to study. And I ended up studying more of a general fine art. But I also had the really hard think. Should I do commercial? Should I study commercial art? And which was probably the only way to make money off of art at that time. And by the time I would have graduated, that entire field became obsolete due to computer technology. They were teaching people how to use little picas and little tools and little drafting things, and then anybody who graduated those couple of years literally learned something that became entirely useless.
Well, I think that's what's happening now is people that are learning coding, for example. You would have thought 3 years ago, oh, no, coders can never be replaced. Turns out now that AI can code just as efficiently and starting to code incredibly efficiently, maybe as efficient as 90% of the coders out there. And soon it'll be 99.8% or 99.9%. So, and that's going to be here in 3 or 4 years. So I think just, what you can do is learn to use your hands to make a good life for yourself. For example, I'm in my Napa Valley winery. We grow grapes. We're going to make wine. We can sell some to our friends and neighbors and things like that. And hopefully that's enough money.
A massive decentralization, a simplification, switch over to a pony-based economy for transportation, for example, and trading between little next door. I mean, ultimately, I drive around my town, Gloucester and Rockport, and at one point, each neighborhood was indeed its own self-contained little thing. They all had their little grocery store. They all had their little cobbler. They all had a little general store, and that was replicated over and over again. And it was, but of course, this century there was this incredible consolidation where all the retails, became giant box stores, and the changes have been so incredible, and over such a short period of time, really, in the scheme of things. Past 100 years, things have been changed incredibly. Past 50 years, incredible changes. So sure, it totally stands to reason that there could be some amazing and incredible changes in store for us. And I seriously hope that we are up to the task.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's going to be a massive change, a transformation like none of us have ever seen in our lifetimes. It's already been a crazy transformation. But, that's the whole thing with exponential technologies. It's kind of, and then boom. And that's what's happening. Whatever you think was crazy 10 years ago, that's going to be that much crazier in 5 years, and then that much crazier in 2 years, and that much crazier in 12 months. And that's where we get to this weird idea of the singularity, which is everything happens so fast, it's hard to even keep track of it anymore.
Yes, and of course, it's a generational thing. As younger people come up, they've only known the world. That's the world they've known, and they've known no other. And we can only relate to that. Whereas I or you have lived through like so much more, and we have this sort of context, and we can compare and contrast and sort of understand how things have been compressing. But of course, when we were young people, that was the world. That's the way it was, and that's the way you understood. Oh no, there's always been rotary phones. We've always been able to call people. Oh no, there's always been black and white television. Look at that. It's amazing and like that. And so I think people know, they only know what they see and have a very hard time thinking about what it was, or just, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's going to be wild. I think when ChatGPT came and generative AI started coming out, I think the world realized, wow, we're on the cusp of a kind of a different thing where, you and I could create these interviews without even doing them anymore in probably 12 to 18 months from now. I'll just send my avatar, a virtual avatar, to answer these questions, and you won't even know it's me.
Do we got to cut it out, or does intellectual property just disappear?
I think that's obviously for the governments and a lot of the lawyers to discuss, but probably it just disappears because it's just too confusing. And if it doesn't disappear, then it's going to be a big free for all. There'll be like the underground market where anything goes, and then there'll be this internet that's really boring where you actually have intellectual property rights. But either way, it's the technology is moving too fast for Congress to even make decisions based on this. And if Congress does make a decision that tries to stop the technology, then China will create it and take a leap ahead. And that's the most interesting thing about this AI and all this weird technology is you can't stop it anymore. No government can actually put their foot down and try to regulate it, because if they regulate it, the next country around the corner is going to do it and do it better and make all the money off it. So the best thing to do is just let free reign capitalism kind of go and hope that nobody kills each other. That, keep the laws in place when people can violently get hurt, but just let, for the first time, a true decentralized society kind of operate. And it won't be perfect, But technology is making us dramatically freer, even if that freedom doesn't necessarily make us happier.
Tony Johnson just pointed out a story of a woman who had a bionic eye and was working just fine, but the company went out of business and wasn't able to service her eye.
Yes, I've read this story, and that's a horrible thing. I don't really know exactly what to say, except that, that person who lost the robotic eye should probably get into the business of trying to learn how to fix their eye and keep themselves. For example, if my tractor breaks down, I know how to fix it. Now, I know a robotic eye is twice as complicated. Nobody can fix a modern car. But I don't think we should get the government involved to protect us, to make sure that that robotic eye stays in place. Then we're kind of like,
I'm thinking perhaps the company could have been better off with a business model of making a subscription service.
Yes.
Subscribing to that eyeball.
Or maybe a bunch of the people who lost access to the eyeball can approach those engineers and say, can you turn this back on or something? I don't know exactly, but I do know that, the person who had the robotic eye should have been grateful in the first place.
The right to repair, the right to repair movement, of course, that the automotive industry has been very vocal about, because, the secrets behind the computer, the secrets behind the things that it's proprietary information, we're not going to give it up.
The good thing is, I think in 2 years, you'll be able to go to to one of the chat GPTs out there and say, listen, fix my eyeball, and it will know how to do so, and you'll be able to do it. So I think even though the eyeball might not work right now, we're coming to a time when you'll be able to have such sophisticated access to AI.
Thank you. That was a much better pivot. You were starting to come off a little heartless there for half a second.
I know what I really don't want to say. It's very difficult, because what should I say? The person was lucky to get the robotic eye in the first place, because somebody made that invention. But at the same time, that somebody, if they choose to withdraw their mind and not give you access to it, why should we force it upon that? And again, this is, governments could step in and try to make it so that works. But you can't force a company to...
Free insulin, yes or no?
So my universal basic income model would say that you take the free money and spend it on whatever you want. And that would be the idea that how you would pay for your insulin. But I don't think we should be forcing at gunpoint a government to give us free insulin, because that's just as much as the problem.
Wait a minute, that sounds a little backwards there, forcing the government at gunpoint to do something.
Well, that's what free insulin is, isn't it? Or are you forcing a corporation?
I think the libertarians would argue it's the taxpayers that you're sticking up.
Yeah, but then you're forcing the taxpayers to do it. Whoever, I meant the government, taxpayers, same sort of thing. The point is that I just don't think we should try to avoid, and I'm not saying it's not 100%. We should try to avoid forcing people to give us things, even if it means life-saving things. At the same time, I'm supporting,
I'm sorry, you said at the same time.
I was going to say, when it comes to money, I think it's quite a bit different, because we're using government land. We're using a society that built all this wealth, and therefore you can extract some of that wealth for universal basic income. How you spend that money, whether it's on insulin or food, I think should be left up to the person.
How is that not going to cause inflation?
Oh, well, I think it will cause inflation, and you're going to have to make some rules where things remain similar, and you can't have kind of gougers that are making changes that quickly. But inflation is something that, I would rather deal with than I'd rather have very costly meat than not be able to buy meat at all, because it's so overpriced to begin with, or the person just chose not to sell it, for example.
Yes. Well, once the decentralization process goes, you'll have your own goat, you'll have your own chickens, you'll have your own cow.
Yeah.
You'll be trading in your neighborhood, and life will be a lot simpler.
And I don't want to come across as some hardcore libertarian. I'm not. I'm a left-leaning libertarian that believes strongly in government.
I'm a former libertarian, a recovering libertarian myself. Yes.
So I'm a strong left-leaning libertarian. That's why I support universal basic income. But I still believe that we shouldn't be forcing either moral issues or governments to do things or private companies to do things or paying too many taxes. We should try to limit. And right now, the left has gone out of control.
On the other hand, you were just talking about regulation of various industries, AI and the like.
No, I don't think we should regulate it. I was just saying that the reason governments cannot regulate it is because other nations might develop it first. I think in the case of AI, we're all screwed. Either the world chose to regulate it, or we just let it go. And I would say let it go. Let's just see what happens in the new age with AI and hope it doesn't go. But again, I don't want to come across as some ultra libertarian. I'm not.
No, fair. I understand. In this day and age, especially just the word libertarian means scumbag to a lot of people. And so I've got to.
I just like free trade. I want to make a deal. Like, if you like something, I'll trade with you. If you want to give it to me, I'll trade with you. I want the government to operate in the same type of transparency. I want private corporations to operate in the same transparency. When it comes to robotic,
real libertarianism has never been tried.
Yeah, no. And it would probably be a disaster because everybody would cut each other's throats. So there might have to be a nice soft hand.
All righty. I think we're up on the hour. Zoltan, I want to thank you very much for coming by and having this wonderful free-ranging chat. And I think we all have a lot to think about this beautiful, amazing, incredible, and completely frightening future which faces us all. And I seriously hope that it all goes well and that our AI overlords do not overwork us in the lithium mines or what have you, and all that good stuff.
No, I thank you so much for having me on. And it's funny because I think in 4 years, if you have me on, it'll probably be an AI-based version of myself, maybe one of 1,000. So that's really weird to think about.
And it will be an AI version of myself interviewing you.
Yes, and maybe it'll be a bunch of AIs listening to it. I mean, it's crazy.
And maybe me and you the real ones could talk on the phone.
Yeah, we'll go have a beer somewhere. Yeah,
we could do a director's cut, and we could comment on what the AI people were saying.
Yeah, no, of course. It's crazy. It's crazy. The whole world's turned crazy.
It is. Now, hold up your book one more time.
Okay, thank you. It's Transhumanist Wager. It's a wonderful libertarian novel. Over 1,000 reviews on Amazon. It's done really well. I'm excited. And, just check it out. If you like freedom, this is about freedom in the future. The Transhumanist Wager.
Right on. Thank you. That was a very beautiful plug. And I thank you very much. And I guess we can roll the credits anytime, or we can keep chatting. Quite frankly, that's the type of show this is sometimes. Sometimes we keep it going a little bit. Sometimes they play the credits. So if Desiree's out there, you can play the credits anytime.
Vermin is my president. Vermin is my friend. Vermin is my president. I got a friend in Vermin. Vermin is my president. Vermin is my friend. Vermin is my president.